Warning: this podcast episode contains swearing, drinking, discussions of ableism, eugenics, and mistreatment of those affected by mental health. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome to Demons and Bellinis, the podcast where we whip up a drink and talk about some spooky shit. I'm already drunk. I'm just here to some ghosts. I'm Molly.
And I'm the sexiest tree you've ever seen. Ashley.
Trees aren't supposed to be sexy. Nature is sexy. But the sexy also implies that I want to fuck. And I don't think I want to fuck any trees.
Are you sure?
I'll fuck some ghosts, but I won't fuck...
What about, like, the ghost of a tree?
Maybe.
Maybe. Hey, girl, I want to get all up in your bark.
Oh. I'm here to kink shame Apollo.
Is that sap, or are you just excited to see me? Hi, Molly. Alright, so today we will be discussing the,
Continue.
I'm gonna keep laughing.
That's the first time I've ever left during the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations. I'm very proud of you for disgusting me that much.
It only took 14 episodes, folks.
You had to think about that for a second, which is fair.
Alright, today we will be discussing a very local for us case. Yes. Not really a case, but more of a place. Yes. Riverview Hospital, or also known as Essondale Hospital, here in Coquitlam, British Columbia. So grab a beverage of your choosing, get cozy, and check your closets for dramatic-ass hoes. And remember to stay peachy.
So, like, I'm very interested to hear about this because, like, it's kind of like the haunted place, I guess I would say, in Coquitlam.
Of the Lower Mainland, not just Coquitlam. It's of the Lower Mainland.
Yeah,
British Columbia.
Like, I've had like friends who've like trespassed on here.
Well, no,
at
here's
night.
the thing. Well, yeah, you shouldn't be walking around at night, but you are allowed to like just walk your dog there. Like, you can literally walk around there. No one's gonna like tell you to like screw off. Just don't go into any of the buildings unless, like, you're there for a reason. Like, a lot of the buildings are still open, and I'll talk about more of that later. A lot of them are still open. So there are people who are patients and staff still there. So if you are going to go, be respectful.
Yeah, my friend broke into one of the houses that had a lot of black mold and got caught by the police there.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
That's what you get for being an idiot.
I mean, it was also because, like, mostly the police were just, like, concerned about them going in there without masks because black mold. But...
Yeah, like, this place is really popular for urban photographers and urban explorers. Like, there are thousands of photos of this place, and it's supposed to just be people breaking.
Yeah, a good majority of it's people breaking in. It's also a very popular movie set. Like,
stop ruining my episode!
Sorry, I'll stop talking.
This is my episode, Molly!
Mom said it's my turn to have the episode.
No! It's you just did an episode, you hoe!
Okay, I'll stop. I'm sorry. It's just, like, I know this place, too, kind of. Not really.
Well, I know a lot about it now.
Yeah, I'm excited. Teach me your ways.
Oh. Alright, mostly, I picked this episode because, one, it was brought up in my gender studies class, and then also because it is, like, you know, you look up most haunted places in BC or in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver, and this place is always up in the top 6. And it's like, I'm frustrated. Because I don't think it belongs on that list.
Okay.
And this is me being like, y'all need to shut the f*** up. I'm done. Okay. I'm very tired.
Okay. So is this going to be one of our ranty episodes?
Yes.
Good.
So just ahead of time, like, this is heavy. We are talking about a insane asylum, mental health hospital, an institution, any of the plethora of names that you want to call it. So it does get heavy. I did my best to kind of keep a lot of the dark stuff out of it, mainly because people have already talked about it.
Mhm.
People have already talked about things like lobotomies, abuses from staff on patients attacking staff, a lot of really dark, I hate to use the word dark, but like just the sad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people have already talked about that. And like whenever people talk about like hospitals like Riverview, that's just what they talk about.
Yeah.
In this episode, I want to talk about why did those things happen? Why were people practicing lobotomies or ice baths or all that other horrible treatments?
Mm-hmm.
Why did people think that was the right thing to do? Why did people turn a blind eye when their abuse is going on? That's what I'm talking about today.
The real demonic stuff
Yeah.
is like the way that we treat those who have trouble.
Yeah, it's like
In general.
it's able-bodied white people.
Ableists, yeah.
Othering other people. It's just a whole thing of othering, right? And like that was the thing with mental health institutions, was to segregate, right? It was to keep the people who away from the majority of the
Totally.
population.
I had relatives who were in Riverview, in fact.
So like this is gonna be a heavy episode. Strap in, take breaks when you need to, or you can skip this episode. There will be no judgment. Totally understand.
Yeah.
I did keep this relatively light in a lot of ways, and that there is no talking about the treatments and how those treatments are done. It's more about why did they happen.
Okay.
So that deals more with like legislation and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm gonna get into it now.
Okay.
And I'll try to make things light where I can.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna start off with the ghost stuff because everyone says this place is haunted.
And what do you think, according to your
tone? I'll answer that question.
Okay.
Okay, wait, no. I'll answer it now. I do believe that, it has the potential to be haunted, but it's not scary.
Okay.
And I think, I'm going to rant about this later when I'm done too. The paranormal community needs to learn the difference between haunted and scary.
Okay.
Haunted does not mean scary.
That's true.
And that applies a lot to hospitals. The haunted does not equal scary.
Well, I mean, like, there's, like, the whole, like, thing with, like, urban exploration.
Yeah.
Where, like, I think I love photos from urban exploration. But in a lot of ways, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, because it really just drums it up as, like, being...
Oh, totally.
Oh, it's scary. It's like, f*** off!
It's cool from an artistic point of view.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's
but
like...
the social...
It really does enforce a lot of ideas.
It totally does.
So yeah, like, that's the main theme of my episode today, is that haunted does not equal scary.
Okay.
And you, paranormal listeners, need to learn that difference. Talking to you, Zach Bagans. Haunted does not mean scary. Please stop saying that it does.
At Zach Bagans.
Here at Demons and Bellinis, we love hot takes. So, apparently there have been a lot of sightings of ghosts and apparitions. There is a photo. I think it's a load of hooey, but there it is. The only source for this photo is from a radio website.
Oh. Alright,
so apparently there have been sightings of apparitions here at Riverview that date back when it was even opening and functioning. I shouldn't say, like, when it was open and functioning, because it is
still open and functioning.
And about to be even more open, which I'll talk about later. But there is this photo of an apparition, apparently that was taken about 10 years ago now, of a staircase, and you can see an apparition of a young man right there. Is that, like, a little sketchy to you?
Yeah.
Right? It looks a little bit photoshopped.
That looks very photoshopped.
Yeah, it just kind of looks like they took a...
creepy man and just, like...
You can very clearly see a face, shoulders, even the shirt that he's wearing. Though, to be fair, it does kind of look like a staff member, like a white shirt, but still, there's just something about it that seems... You can also
very
see
photoshopped.
A shadow right there.
Yeah.
So...
I don't know if I believe that now.
Yeah. But anyways, so apparently, as we talked about before, urban photographers and explorers have claimed to have felt unwelcoming atmospheres, and that tends to be a very common phenomenon at Riverview, is that people feel very unwelcome there.
Yeah, I was talking to Ashley about before I had heard about this, like, mutual friend of ours who kind of lives near the area, who cited that they
cited,
sometimes...
you mean claimed?
Claimed, yeah.
Cited just seems so awkward in these occasions.
They claimed that they, like, sometimes when they're biking by there, they feel really uncomfortable and that they, like, feel like the need to leave.
Yeah.
But that's also could just be
You see a creepy abandoned building, you feel creeped out.
Yeah.
It could also be, too, is that, like, if it is haunted, and, like, people don't want you coming into their space, right?
Yeah.
It's, like, people, and, like, that probably translates into, like, ghosts as well, is, like, no one wants strangers in their space.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And especially if you're, like, protective of a space, you don't want people in your space.
Yeah, it's really fair.
Especially if you're, like, breaking into buildings.
Yeah.
People have claimed to have heard children's voices. They've also heard laughing and snickering. A landscaper claimed to have seen door handles on one of the hospital buildings, which is all the buildings. They just said hospital buildings in this Reddit chat forum.
That's very vague.
This is how hard it is for me to find. This is, like, I had to go onto Reddit to find, like, stories, like, ghost stories from, like, this place.
Mm-hmm.
So frustrated I am. So a landscaper claimed to have seen door handles on one of the buildings being pulled at by an invisible force. When he went to ask a security guard about it, the guard said to, quote, "Never go near that building. We don't even make the rounds after dark anymore," end quote. And went on to say that he couldn't, like, say why they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Other people have claimed to have found vague, threatening / disturbing graffiti on many of the buildings.
That's just teenagers.
Yeah.
That's our local teens being
writing
assholes.
like, blood, 666,
shut the fuck
Satan.
up. Ugh.
And it
gives pagans a bad name.
It is listed as one of the top haunted locations in all of British Columbia.
Okay.
Does all of that add up to sound haunted to you? Or sound up to be scary haunted to you?
That just kind of sounds like your typical haunting kind of shit, but can be easily explained away.
Yeah. Also, it's just so generic.
It's very generic.
Like, what I find with actual, like, places that do seem haunted is that they have very specific, like, experiences associated with them. Like Berkeley Square, very specific. Right? Super specific. The tunnel that we just talked about, super specific. Mm-hmm. This place is just,
eerie voices.
Yeah, and that, I will talk about, like, there is potential, I do believe that, you know, it has the potential to be haunted.
I mean, that could be, like, a very mild haunting, because, I mean, like, of course, like, there's negative energy that's associated there, so that could attract
there is
some
a lot
spirit.
of negative energy, but...
That doesn't seem like a extreme haunting.
Yeah, as much as, like, people
not
like
something
to play
that
it
I
out.
would rate as the 6th most haunted. Because they're
one of the 6.
Ooh, I almost talked about this, but it's too short for an episode, but there is this
Is it the Spaghetti Factory?
It's not the Spaghetti Factory. Fuck! There's this one ghost town in, like, Upper BC.
Oh, I think I know about it. Is there an orphanage?
There's not an orphanage.
Oh, what
but there's this one story about Hattie McBride, who was a lady of the night.
Oh, I heard about her.
Yeah, I almost did an episode on that. I kind of wanted to.
You should still do it.
Yeah, but that I would rate, like, way higher than Riverview, because Riverview just kind of has, like, kind of stuff, whereas, like, a lot of the stuff in BC, like, there's not a lot of people in BC, because a good majority of it's just, like, mining and fishing.
Yeah.
And lumber.
That's just the white people.
Yeah. But you can find a lot of really cool stuff in northern BC, and that's not talked about, and certainly, I don't think Riverview warrants top 6.
I feel like also, too, like, every Halloween when Vancouver radio shows are like, here's are the top scariest haunted locations in Vancouver. Riverdale's always on there. And
Riverdale?
Riverview. Riverdale's scary, too. Riverview is always on there, and they just cite it because it's an abandoned mental hospital. Yeah.
It's very easy to make it out as haunted.
And that's my problem.
Yeah.
That's my huge problem. Is, like, you can't just say that. Because that just implies so much. That implies that
That's very problematic.
That implies that you are scared of the people who are patients there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is gross.
It's very gross.
That is gross.
I don't know, it's kind of a weird location, though, because if you think about it, it's this whole area that has a lot of mystique and, like, fear surrounding it. But it is, like, 5 minutes away from, like, the major metropolitan area.
Yeah.
Wait, like, right where, like, the SkyTrain,
the
metro station is, the mall, all the shit. It's right off of the highway. I see it almost every day when I'm going down the highway.
Yeah. It's just, for me, like, it's not scary. It's a sad place. Haunted or not, it's a sad place.
Yeah.
And it needs to be treated as a very tragic, sad place.
Yeah, because going back to our brief discussion on Canadian history in our last episode, Canadians don't have a very good track record of...
I'll take the wheel from here.
Yeah.
So I had to divide... I wasn't able to include all of Riverview's history in it and all of its deaths because there's just so many and we'd be here for 2 hours and we'd be really sad by the end of it. Mm-hmm. So I decided to... majority of this is just gonna be history because I'm like, no one does their fucking research.
I mean, there's not a lot of encounters.
No, there's not. I had to go on Reddit to try to find encounters.
There's just jiggling doorknobs and screams.
And if like an apparition, like people do see apparitions, but like that one photo, as you guys will probably see when you go into our Instagram and our Twitter, it looks a little bit photoshopped, just a little bit. But and I just
plus that area does get a lot of traffic.
Yeah. It's very busy.
Yeah, there was like a whole movie that was filmed there. Sorry, I need to stop talking
Several,
about that.
And you need to stop talking about
Sorry.
that. Or you're gonna ruin my fucking episode.
I'm just gonna say from my perspective, it feels like every other time that I that I'm driving by there, I see trailers out
Yeah, people are filming.
People filming all the time.
But yeah. So I divided the history up into history as in like BC, Canada, history with a bit of like kind of like when it opened, and then I did more localized history on the actual area itself because it is like acres of land.
Are you going to talk at all about the Alberta legislation with eugenics and sterilization?
I talked about BC's because that's more relevant than Alberta.
Okay, that's fair. I just heard a lot about Alberta from my university classes.
Because what happened was that BC and Alberta had almost the exact same legislation.
I did not know that.
They had the exact same, but BC destroyed all of its records when they repealed it.
Oh.
They destroyed almost all of them. So there's almost zero records about BC's eugenics history. But Alberta didn't destroy their records.
Can we define eugenics? Because I straight up didn't know what eugenics was until I got to university.
Eugenics is the belief that you can create the perfect human being. It is a pseudoscience. Extremely racist, ableist, sexist, the whole list.
Yeah.
Homophobic, all of that shit. And it was created in the mid-1800s and really hit the ground running in the early 20th century and then like all the way through the 50s, and it's still practiced today.
Can you talk about how this was mainly accomplished?
Medical institutions and legislation, because people in power believed in it. Actually, the Canada's 7, what are their names? Or like the person's case here in Canada, which was a big deal. There's these 7 women who fought for women to be recognized as persons in the Constitution.
Yes.
All of them were eugenicists. So they all believed in the perfect white woman. They fought for the rights of the white woman who was straight and,
middle class.
Yeah, and had
upper class.
No mental health issues.
Yeah.
So, like, it was basically people like this wanted to breed out all the other races except for white. They wanted to breed out mental health issues. They wanted to breed out blind and deaf issues, because they believed that was hereditary.
Yeah.
And they wanted to breed out homosexuality.
And a big... Sorry.
Yeah.
I took a very similar history of sexuality course, which actually talked a lot about the eugenics movement, which I was very interested in. And the way that a lot of this was accomplished was through forced sterilization.
Yeah.
Which often was very, like...
It still happens.
Yeah. There's this whole case of this woman in Alberta.
That was in 2017.
Yeah.
2017, and people are still being sterilized.
Yeah. Essentially what happened is that she was sterilized because her mother sent her to a mental institution because she was having difficulties with her because the mom was treating her...
Wasn't she also First Nations?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was. She was an Indigenous woman.
That's the big kicker in Canada, is that literally all of these cases are happening to Indigenous women.
Yes. It
is not happening to white women. It is happening to Indigenous women.
Yes.
Indigenous women in Canada are being sterilized up until, to this day, March 24th, 2019.
It's horrible.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. And yeah, like, there's literally no... I mean, of course, there's no reason to ever sterilize someone, but she had no, like, prior history of mental health issues. She was basically just sterilized because she was an issue, in their opinion.
Yeah.
And she sued the Canadian government for that, I believe is what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's some really disgusting history that we need to talk about because I straight up didn't hear about it until I got to university.
Yeah, and it's not... And, like, people think, like, oh, it's just individual people. It's not. It is the governments doing this.
Yeah.
It is institutions, and that's what I'm about to talk about.
I'm already finishing off my second drink.
Well, I didn't get any more.
That's fine. I have vodka downstairs.
Fuck. You might need it. So, I'm going to begin with the big, broad BC history because that's relevant to the story, and then I'll get a little bit more localized to Essondale in general. Mm-hmm. So, BC had its first mental health institution, which was the Royal Hospital in Victoria. Mm-hmm. It opened in 1876. It closed not long afterwards due to overcrowding, and many patients were sent to the Provincial Asylum in New Westminster, British Columbia, which eventually would become Woodlands Institution. Mm-hmm. Do you know where the SkyTrain meets Columbia Station to go to Surrey?
I know exactly the hospital that you're talking about, the one that looks like the castle.
Is that it?
I think so.
I thought it was gone.
Maybe, but I do know that one hospital is haunted, allegedly, according to my friend.
Yeah, well, I know that I think it was gone, but a lot of it is, I didn't look a lot into Woodlands. I know that Woodlands is at a higher degree in terms of, really gross history than Riverview. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. So in 1897, BC passes the Hospitals for the Insane Act, which says mentally ill persons can be involuntarily committed to a hospital under an urgency, which requires 2 medical certificates. So that means that as long as you can get 2 people to sign off on it, you can put someone away. Yeah. Without their consent.
It's really horrible.
Yep. So in 1901, doctors, in their books and stuff, came to the consensus that, quote, insanity is caused by hereditary passing, intemperance, which is lack of restraint, syphilis, and or masturbation, end quote.
Yeah.
I do know that there were a few protests from patients, on the Riverview campus, and stuff like that. There were photos of them with signs and stuff like that, and a lot of them were talking about how, it was you who created the idea that we, them, were, you know, mentally ill or something. Yeah. So in 1904, the BC government secures land in rural Coquitlam. I just find that funny because it's not rural anymore.
It's not rural at all.
In rural Coquitlam to build a new hospital because of overcrowding at the provincial asylum. Again, problems of overcrowding. Dr. Henry Essen Young, he was born 1862 and he dies in 1939. He advocated heavily for the new hospital, and it was named after him. Much of the land was cleared by patients, and after building, manual farm work continued to be a part of daily life. Now, that might sound bad, and in some ways it is, but Riverview had this really huge emphasis on, being outside, doing gardening. There's a nice, huge botanical garden by the nurse's house over here.
Okay. And I'm just gonna spread these pages out. Yeah. But yeah, no, when I was in high school, I remember in my geography class, we were actually talking about Riverview in terms of the rare trees that are...
there's a lot of, really beautiful trees in Riverview.
But a lot of rare trees because it was believed that being outside would help the patients in terms of rehabilitation.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, just being outside, being active. They had theater events. They even had gymnasts come and perform a lot of times. There's a article from a couple years ago about someone who organized those events. It was pretty interesting. So it's around this time that, as we talked about, eugenics becomes a large part of government policies and practice and is implemented in institutions. In 1907, the Eugenics Education Society was founded in Britain. So in 1913, the Hospital for the Mind opens, and that is the first name for Riverview and Essondale. Hospital of the Mind. So this was the first building, was the West Lawn.
Okay.
It housed 300 male patients. It was believed that people who were patients or residents there could live out their lives, and therapy included building maintenance, food production, and horticulture. It was praised as progressive, but between the 40s through to the 70s, many people came forward and stated that they had been sterilized while at the hospital. In 1933, BC did pass legislation that made sterilization legal. That was the Act, quote, Act Representing Sexual Sterilization. It was not repealed until 1973.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. So, people are I feel like that a lot of people who don't know about this, they think it's oh, that was just a popular belief. But it wasn't just a belief. It was
practiced.
Practiced by people in power.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, I didn't know about eugenics as a movement, nor did I know about Canada's history of eugenics until I got to post-secondary.
And
And that was something that is, totally ingrained in like stuff like residential schools. That was heavily practiced. And that is even sometimes, from what I've heard from other people, like not specifically something that I experienced, but sometimes I've heard that residential schools, especially like 10 years ago, was like phrased in almost as, oh, we're trying to integrate these people into our white society.
It's like a boarding school.
It's a boarding school where these people learned how to read. No, off. It was actually proven that they used these people who were residing in residential schools as almost guinea pigs. A lot of them actually poisoned their food. This was proven in the, like, I think 2008 or something.
Fuck.
And they used this to learn more about poisoning in, like, military practices.
Are you serious?
They use these fucking kids.
Holy shit.
I'm sorry if I get, like, a little bit intense during this episode. I mean, you guys know, as I got really political in the Swift Runner episode, I feel very, very strongly about Indigenous rights.
Yeah.
As an Indigenous woman. Or I guess as a Métis woman, technically.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't claim to be a part of the Indigenous because I wasn't raised in that community.
Yeah.
But it certainly echoed throughout my personal family history.
Yeah.
And so I do feel quite strongly about it, despite not being completely ingrained in that society, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that was also a case of being alienated.
Yeah. So in 1950, jumping ahead a little bit, Britain passes the Mental Health Act, which was designed to make treatment voluntary and informal. Took them a while. 1964, BC Colquitt's Hospital for the Criminally Insane, or the Forensic Psychiatric Hospital, closes, and it was in Victoria. It closes, and patients were transferred to Riverview. In 1965, BC introduces the Mental Health Act, which works the same way as Britain's, to deinstitutionalize and open more local clinics for care and create more services. That had pros and cons. Well, it does sound better that, you know, it's more localized, it's more like a clinic, you can take care of yourself. A lot of people were just thrown onto the street when these buildings started closing. They had nowhere else to go.
And we all know what happened as a result in Vancouver.
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't local, I guess you wouldn't really know about this, but there's this huge area of Vancouver that is known as the Lower East Side. Mm-hmm. Again, I have relatives who have been affected by this, so I do feel very strongly about this. And it has been a large topic for the past, 20 to 30 years. I'm going to estimate, though I don't know the exact number of years that this has been an issue. But basically what happened is that this area of Vancouver that has a lot of issues with drug addiction and mental health coincided with the closure of Riverview Hospital, which, I'm totally jumping ahead there.
No, it's relevant, is what I was going to talk about with this
Exactly,
point.
Yeah. And it's been a huge discussion of, how do we solve the poverty? How do we solve the drug addiction in the Lower East Side? We're putting millions of dollars into this and we're getting no results. It's because they kicked these people onto the streets.
Yeah, when they closed Riverview.
And that is where they all congregated. And that is the primary reason for this insane, it's just a couple square blocks if you're driving through Vancouver.
Yeah.
You go from fairly commercial areas
to
right into this area of poverty. It's so
gentrified in a very disturbing way.
It really is.
There's that one little block where these people have nowhere else to go, because if they go anywhere else, it's just they get ignored by rich people. Because that's all Vancouver is just rich people, right? And it's
yeah. On the one hand, I love where I live because I really love the nature aspect of Vancouver, but then also a lot of the I went to the Transgender Day of Remembrance in Vancouver, and we actually started in the Lower East Side, and I never have walked through the Lower East Side, not been in the car where my mom literally locked the doors on us.
Yeah.
Just in case. Which is, not to blame my mom or anything, but
but
it was
the common thing that people do. My parents did it too.
Yeah. And I walked through there and just seeing it again, because we walked from that area right into the rich area of Vancouver. We actually ended at Waterfront.
Oh, that's the richest.
Yeah. And it was just the contrast was really insane to me, because I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
I've known about it, but I have a lot of issues with Vancouver.
Yeah.
And the way that they deal with because that was the entire fault of that was the closure of Riverview, and that's where that issue all started.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we don't know how to fix this issue. Yeah, the f*** you do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm totally derailing your episode.
No, it's important. It's very important. It's like, I can't remember who it was, but someone pointed out that we have a lot of hot takes on our podcast. A lot of other paranormal podcasts don't. And because we're kind of drunk, we're just saying, like, no, f*** it, we're gonna f***ing call you shit out.
We're f***ing calling out Vancouver, BC, Canada, colonialism.
Yep. So...
we're calling you out.
Because, like, everything is so intertwined, right? Like,
it really is.
Like, we're talking about a place that's considered haunted, but it's more than that. It's more than just a haunted location. Its history has effects that are happening and playing out now.
I would say that the real haunting of this area is how haunted it has made Vancouver.
Fuck.
Hot take.
That's a hot take.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Because, I mean, like, again, in the Lower East Side, millions of dollars gets poured into that every single year.
Yeah.
And yet, it was all caused because, one of the main, I can't really claim that it's the main because obviously it's a lot more complicated than that.
There's a lot of
my
factors.
knowledge, from my knowledge, one of the primary factors was the closure of this hospital.
Yeah, with all of its...
underfunding.
Yeah.
And
even like just Fraser Health in general is very underfunded.
It
like
really
the
is.
hospital my mom works at, they have to ask people for donations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super understaffed too.
Yeah.
Like my mom's a pharmacist and she's even like, there's not enough staff.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough staff.
Yeah.
There's not enough nurses, not enough,
Which is surprising because nursing seems to be a very popular field to go into.
Yeah, and it's like, where do you guys go after you graduate?
Yeah, again, I can't say that I really know the root of that issue, but it just seems like a very odd power balance, I guess. Is
like healthcare, both physical and mental in BC.
I'm just gonna plug in my...
I mean, I can't say like Ontario because I haven't, or anywhere else because I haven't like lived there or, been there long enough or experienced their healthcare, but in BC it just seems really weird.
Yeah. And like I said, there was also history in Alberta specifically about sterilization. I took this class 2 years ago, and I still have all the information. It was actually the same class where we learned about what a young boy ought to know about the masturbation.
And then the whole thing where they were like, and that was like such a Christian thing too, where it's like Christianity and eugenics super influenced all of this. Mm-hmm. Right, where it's like, in that whole...
I'll have to lend you this textbook that I had, because I feel like you'd find it really interesting.
Or I'll just take the class.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let's talk about something light.
Okay, good. I finished my alcohol at this point, so I'm just kind of like...
So, in 2012, the majority of the campus closed. It is now in the process of renovation, or as they call it, a revisioning. With new buildings being built that will they'll open, and a whole bunch of other buildings will reopen this year, 2019, to house 105 patients. So that's moving in a good step forward. And the beds that they're like the people that they are hoping to help are people with addiction and severe mental health issues. So that's moving in the right step forward, because like again, there just isn't the care right now.
That still is only 105.
It's only 105, but I mean,
it is a good step.
It's a step, and it's a good step.
Yeah, and we should give them credit for that.
Yeah. For those of you who might not be from the Lower Mainland, you might recognize this building though.
Yeah,
because it has been the site of hundreds of films and TV shows, such as Supernatural,
X-Files,
Deadpool 2. There's an aerial shot of Riverview, and in the background, you can see my building and my balcony. So, if I was in my house when they did that shot, I'm technically in Deadpool 2.
I'm so proud of you.
I know, I worked really hard to get that part.
Yeah.
I loved working with Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling! R.I.P. Ryan Gosling episode.
It's also the site of Elf.
I did not know that.
Yes. Okay, so the apartment in Elf
was
actually shot inside the clinic building. I think it was the Crease Clinic. It might have also been one of the other lawn buildings.
Oh, okay.
But it might have been the Crease Clinic, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
Where they actually built the set inside of the building and shot every single apartment scene in Elf in that building.
It's a very cheap area to film in.
Yeah, it's very cheap.
Yeah. Like, literally, like, there was, like, when I was super into Supernatural and I was still watching everything.
It's so funny.
Basically, every single time that you would see a hospital, I would just see
Riverview.
Yeah, I would see the brick pattern and be like, oh, that's a Riverview.
It's Riverview.
That's a Riverview.
They also shot a lot in Vancouver. Deadpool 2 is all in Vancouver.
Yeah, pretty much. Deadpool 1 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I remember my boyfriend and my friend being like, yeah, Ryan Gosling. I keep saying Ryan Gosling. And they're like, yeah, Ryan Reynolds is like shooting like a block away from where we work.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, totally. Actually, I remember...
Totally.
Totally. I remember watching the first season of Supernatural in episode 5, the one that has all this... Yeah, that one was completely shot in Riverview. And it was a very interesting episode for me to watch when I was...
that one!
That one was very problematic in its treatment of mental health.
Was that the one where he, like, dies?
Yeah.
He's in a coma? Yeah.
I don't know, I haven't watched it in years, but yeah, episode 5 I remember.
Is it bad that I remember it and I haven't watched it in how many years?
Again,
I clearly remember the Bunsen Lake one.
That one scared me. That one scared the hell out of me.
With the thing
yeah,
in the lake.
Yeah.
That was a good episode, though.
I will hold on. Okay, Supernatural.
Could have ended at season 5. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Supernatural, up to season 5, good shit. Good storytelling. I like the arc. Very X-Files-esque. They should have kept that going. Yeah.
Either kept it going, or ended at season 5, or at the least, season 7.
Yeah.
At the most.
Yeah. I mean, like, some people are like, oh, season 3 is where it should have ended, but I do like Cass.
No, season 5 was good. It was
season
a
5
good
was
place
good.
to end it.
Yeah.
It made sense to end it there. That's where I believe that it ended.
Yeah. I don't accept anything else.
I just wiped the whole Leviathan thing from my mind, because that story didn't make sense. Are those things aliens? Are they demons? Who the knows?
Do aliens even exist in Supernatural?
No.
I think they explain them as fairies.
If there's an alien episode, I'm gonna eat someone's ass. Just fucking eat it.
Anyway, Riverview gets filmed a lot. Yeah, they film a lot.
They also filmed The Butterfly Effect, Riverdale, and my all-time favorite, Grim Encounters.
Which I've not seen.
Y'all should definitely... Grim Encounters is one of those found footage-esque horror films that's just so... I don't know how to describe it because its plot makes zero sense. It's literally a serious spoof of Ghost Adventures that just ended up being a spoof of Ghost Adventures.
I love it.
It's legitimately a spoof of Ghost Adventures.
We're gonna have to watch it after we finish recording.
So good.
We're gonna pop my Grim Encounters virginity.
Yeah, but it's all shot... Please don't say that. But yeah, it's all shot inside and outside Riverview. Yeah. And it's the most low-quality found footage horror film that somehow ends up in the Las Vegas desert for some weird-ass f***ing reason. That's it. I'm not gonna say anymore.
I'm glad that you cheered me up there.
Yeah, because we're gonna get sad again.
Oh, no.
So, I'm gonna get more into the local history now of Essondale. A review now that you know the background history.
Mm-hmm.
You know all this legislation that's going on in the background because that has a huge effect on how people are actually, like the average person is treated. So in the local history, first just to acknowledge that this is a big, huge chunk of unceded land.
As most of Vancouver is.
As most of BC is. The Quaiquitlam.
Quaiquitlam?
Yes.
Quaiquitlam?
Yes. First Nation they've laid claim to the land that Riverview sits on that stretches through to the river.
Yeah, it's Colony Farms.
Yeah.
Colony Farms. I just realized that that's a very bad name.
It is a weird name. I don't like that. I believe it was called Colony Farms when it was built as well.
Mm.
Yeah, which is weird. And they are, the Quaiquitlam, they are part of the revisioning process, right, that's going on currently. They have input in how the future of this area is going to look.
Which is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with just talking about the main kind of buildings. There are so many buildings on this land, campus, acreage. So I'm only going to talk about the main one because there's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one on my list, which is closest to the road, is the Veterans Block or the Crease Clinic. It was built in 1938 to kind of meet the demands of World War I and eventually World War II returning veterans. Oh yeah, and the Crease Clinic is also a very iconic building in terms of films.
Very
all the time.
That and like Center Lawn.
Yeah, that Center Lawn and East Lawn. They also have other names. They got called lawns in the 50s, I guess, to make them sound less intimidating. So the main building is the Male Chronic Wing, which was renamed to the West Lawn in 1950. It closed in 1983. It had opened in 1913, making it the oldest building on the property. And you can see a photo there from when it first built.
Oh.
There are 0 trees.
Yeah.
There are no trees.
Yeah.
I don't know when all of the trees that are currently there were planted, but when it was first built, the entire place was cleared of all trees.
Wow.
So like even here, where this is all trees now,
Yeah.
there are none there in that photo.
That is so weird.
Yeah. There is also a provincial industrial school for boys, where it was believed that they could cure delinquency.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it opened in 1922 and it closed in 1955. The buildings were moved to Vancouver Island, I think because they're made to look like English cottages, like medieval cottages. Like they had a very like peasantry kind of look about them. I think there's only one building like it remaining on the property. But yeah, majority of them were moved after they closed.
Okay.
There is the Acute Psychopathic Wing or Center Lawn, which opened in 1924 and it became the female unit, and it closed in 2012. East Lawn is the largest building on the property. It opened in 1930 and closed in 2005. In 1955, a post office and corner store opened to meet the demands of the growing population of Essondale. There was also, I've seen that there was like a movie theater, there was a whole bunch of different like services around the campus to, meet demands of like patients and staff. That was quite interesting. In 1955, the tuberculosis unit or North Lawn opened, and this led to the peak of the population at Riverview. There is a cemetery for patients who had no family or their families requested that they be buried there. It was established in 1965. Prior to that, those who had passed, whose families couldn't arrange for funerals or burial, were buried in unmarked graves in Fraser Cemetery in New Westminster. There was also a school for grades 1 to 12 for children who were patients as well as staff children. It was a one-room school and was located near Lougheed Highway, which is right there where I drunkenly marked.
That's the big highway that we talked about,
Yeah.
that we drive past a lot.
Yeah, it's like where this intersection is, that like weird small intersection. When you go up here, it's
I know
right
the one.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
So in 1956, Riverview was at its highest population with 4,305 patients.
And how much was it originally meant to house?
The first building opened for about 400 patients.
Okay.
Yeah, it had 450 in 1913. That number eventually declined to 800 in 2004. 4,000 that's a huge number. That's a huge number.
Big boy.
And that's like everything from like tuberculosis to masturbating.
Were they still institutionalizing people who masturbated?
I don't. Probably. Let's be real here.
God damn it.
This is BC in the 50s. God damn it. So this is the part where I could have gone into a lot of details, but I personally didn't feel comfortable talking about all the deaths on this property because there are a lot. Everything from, it's both staff and patients, and it varies from suicides to natural causes to tuberculosis to work accidents. There's even a case of murder, all over the board. And I chose one story to tell because it kind of shows that like, the story just kind of like stood out to me, and that it kind of shows that this place is a sad place. It's not, there's just no more to it than that. It's just it's a sad place. So So the story I chose to talk about is Annie Stewart Keith. She was a nurse. She worked there from 1927 to 1942, giving her the longest record of employment at Riverview. And she was a matron nurse. So one night in 1942, she was working in one of the wings of her building. I wasn't able to find which one exactly. But she was in the wing when a vat of melting floor wax caught on fire. So she knew that if she left it there, her patients would be hurt. So she picked up this burning vat of floor wax and carried it outside, which ultimately set herself on fire, and she later died due to her injuries.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Oh, God. So it's like, she was, you can still go visit her cemetery if those of you who live in the Lower Mainland want to give this nurse who risked her life for her patients some flowers. She was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Burnaby.
Okay.
So it's like it's just sad.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many, this is a case where, you have a staff member who genuinely cared for her patients, and she, carried a burning vat of melting flour wax.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Outside.
Yeah. Like, again, when we talk about mental institutions, we see a lot of people, again, talking about the conditions there.
Yeah.
I actually mentioned that when we were discussing what we were going to be doing. I actually asked Ashley, are we going to be talking about the conditions in review? And she said, no, because that is all people talk about.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really appreciate that story, because that actually shows, like, the genuine good side of humans.
And there are stories of, like, staff abusing patients. Like, the murder case is related to staff injuring a patient. There are suicides, both staff and patient. And, like, those stories should be told.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel right for me to tell them in this podcast about haunted buildings.
That's fair.
Right.
We can also link these stories.
Yes. There is a wonderful, it's a Blogspot website, that is run by someone who is incredibly dedicated to finding all of these stories. This is where I got Annie's story from. And you can find so many of these stories about patients and staff who were at Riverview. It is called essondale.blogspot.com. And so you can read more stories, and they dig up everything from marriage certificates to immigration records, because a lot of these nurses, like Annie herself, was an immigrant to Canada. So, she finds everything from immigration records to marriage certificates, birth certificates, death certificates, newspaper articles, everything you could, where they lived, where they died, where they were born, all that stuff. So go check out that website. They have some wonderful, well, not wonderful, but, like, they have a lot of, like, in-depth,
important history.
Like, first source kind of material.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I mean, again, this is the importance of, I say this in quotes, dark history.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of that it's dark.
It's just under-researched.
Again, it's very under-researched, and you don't hear a lot about it. It's very important to specialize in this kind of stuff and to uncover this kind of stuff, because it's this is my own opinion, but getting into history is very important in informing present.
Yeah. Like, as I ranted about in our last episode, who gives a about Napoleon? I want to hear about people like Annie, or people like Otto. That's the name of the patient who was murdered by staff. I want to hear his story. I want to hear about, people. Yeah. Not just Napoleon, like those great... I'm tired of great man figures.
You know what else I think? Is that there's not enough emphasis on local history.
Oh, yeah. People don't know their local history.
And that's so important to hear about. Like, that's actually a big emphasis in a lot of witchcraft that I've noticed, is knowing about your local plants, knowing about your local mythology. And that is very hard to find. I mean, for obvious... Okay. And specifically Canada, the, Indigenous history, in terms of mythology and in terms of practices, is very protected. Yeah. But that is for a very specific reason.
You have to... If you're not...
Because if you don't protect your history, white people are going to put their grubby hands all over it. And that's the truth of it.
Yeah, no, I laugh because that's just, I can think of so many occasions where that has happened. There was someone who wrote a book. They're a white dude. They wrote a book about northern like a nation in northern BC, about their mythology, and they got pissed off at him because he did not ask permission.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's actually there's this one book that I studied. I think it's something about, like, I can't, because I didn't find this stuff beforehand, but it's by this woman called E. Pauline Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. And it's all about the mythologies of Vancouver that she learned. Like, she's actually a Métis woman. She was half white, half Indigenous. And she learned all this all from Squamish chiefs that were told to her specifically. And this is all about her sharing the history. And this was written in the early 1900s. And I find that book very specifically very interesting. Yeah. And also it was actually out of print for a while, but then now it's back in print, which I think is really great. But yeah, and it's all about like these stories from like the coastline of BC. And I think that's very interesting. And again, she published this because this was told to her and that she wanted to explain these histories and to share the histories and like the background to colonial Vancouver. Yeah.
And like for me, I have no right talking about like Indigenous stories, and because I'm a white woman. Yeah. I am a privileged white woman, and I should not be raising my voice. I should be using my privileged platform to let other people talk.
Exactly, yeah. Right?
So like for me, it's like in this podcast, like I want to bring these issues up, but know that I don't want, like, it's not my intention to talk over people.
No, exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, I come from a very similar point of view because, again, my Métis heritage is only, like, I think 16%.
Bringing up the numbers.
Yeah, again, I mean, that's just, like, estimated. But, like, a lot of that, everything else is basically colonialist history. Yeah. And, again, while I can bring up the fact that this did affect my family in a very real way, I've kind of gone into a lot of my family history. I don't know if that's generally appropriate, but I feel like it's worth sharing. But I, again, like I mentioned, was not raised in a primarily Indigenous household, nor was I brought up in that way. All I know is from being in these classes in post-secondary, hearing the voices of fellow Indigenous women who have more to say on this subject and more right to speak on this subject. Yeah. And what I've learned in the reconciliation movement of having ABED programs, which is very important and I wish was better funded. That's a time for another day. But yeah, like, I mean, if I can use my voice to bring up these issues, I would never claim to have rights over these stories, but I just want to share them and have you guys look further into this because it's a very under-researched, a very under-spoken about topic. Yeah. I wish that I could elaborate further on this, explain myself better, but I've had 2 drinks, a little bit drunk, but it's important to talk about. Yeah. Like, I once had this evening where I got really drunk, ended up throwing up later, but all I talked about was my family's history. And it was actually kind of therapeutic to talk about the stuff that affected me growing up that wasn't explicitly explained to me until I was at a very later age and is not very talked about just in general, and that I just kind of hear echoes of throughout my entire life. Yeah. From my grandparents to my aunt and stuff like that. Yeah. It's tough. Let's get back to that was a very dark episode.
Okay. To kind of wrap this up, going back to the whole ghost thing, because we are a paranormal podcast, I think that this place does have the potential to be haunted, but it's up to us people who live in the Lower Mainland to change the way that we talk about how this place is haunted. Because doing research for this, I was like disappointed. Mm-hmm. So, like, I saw on the same Reddit forum, people were talking about there's so, like, people just use this place as like theatrics. Like, there's an event, I can't remember when, but it was like a Valentine's Day haunted house.
What the
Yeah, so
it was disgusting.
It's a Valentine's Day haunted house about the urban legend of Saint Clementine, who was apparently a nun who was she was a patient at Riverdale. I keep saying Riverdale, I'm sorry. She was a patient at Riverview, and then she was released only to be murdered on commercial, and apparently her ghost still haunts commercial to this day, and they made a Valentine's Day haunted house out of that.
That's disgusting.
Yes!
That's like a very similar, like, that kind of reminds me of disaster tourism.
Oh,
like what you
hate
see
that.
in Salem, Massachusetts, and how tacky it's gotten.
Is it bad though that I kind of want to go to Salem?
I would
Because,
go
like,
to Salem
I want to
too.
go there to like see the history. I don't want to go there to buy souvenirs.
Yeah. No, I want
Though
to
I
go
might
there
find,
to
like,
pay
one
respects.
souvenir. If it's cute, I'm sorry, but like, no, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
and I 100% agree. It's like really gross.
Yeah, how long does it take for
Or,
a
like,
tragic event to become a tourist
normalized.
attraction?
Or like people taking cute selfies on the railroad tracks outside of Auschwitz.
Ugh.
Did you see that?
I did see that.
That tweet from the other day.
I did see that. There was also this political figure who took a picture of the Auschwitz gates and said, "This one thing looks like a penis." Isn't that f***ing disgusting?
I hate people.
Anyway, welcome back to Molly and Ashley get really mad at history and politics.
But also, I saw another, in the same forum, not the St. Clementine's thing was an actual event that you could buy tickets to.
Tickets. They made money off of this?
Probably. There was, on the forum where I found the landscaper talking about his experience with the door handles, there was someone who had responded, and they said that they went up there with a group of friends just to, like, all, you know, like...
Yeah, like what my friends did.
Yeah, just to, like, goof off and shit. So they go up there, and they're talking about how, like, it was so super creepy. So they claim that they were near a spot where there's an old willow tree, with rumors of a lot of patients committing suicide there, which I found 0 records of.
Ugh. Again, we get back into the dramatics of...
Like, there are records of suicides at Riverview,
Yeah.
but they are not people hanging themselves from a willow tree.
No.
No, they're not.
Again, this...
It's like the reason that people here in Vancouver are like, oh, Riverview's so scary is because you see a lot of abandoned buildings and like its context of being a abandoned, even though it's actually not, mental health hospital. It's like
it's a very easy target.
Yeah.
And again, us talking about the dramatization of paranormal hotspots. Hotspots I say with quotations. Paranormal hotspots. Is that... Okay, being dramatic... Fine, whatever. If you're going into fictional ghost stories, I think it's fun.
Yeah.
Go around a campfire.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about real life people, it's disgusting.
Especially when there are people who are still alive who are patients there.
People who are still there. And people who
are still there. People who still receive treatment at these places.
And people who are still affected by the closure of this.
Yeah.
The partial closure of it. Living in the Lower East Side, which has contributed to this major poverty hotspot, which people keep on pouring money into while not affecting the core reasons that it was...
Yeah. So, for those of you who are from Vancouver listening to this, we ask you to please reconsider the way that you talk about this place, this history, and its ghosts. And learn the difference between haunted and scary.
And sad.
Yes. That's all I got.
That's fair. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know all of that, actually.
Yeah, and there's, I could do a part 2 to this place. There's so much history. I encourage you guys to please do your own research. If you, especially people who are from Vancouver, to learn its history, get active, listen. Yeah.
Talk to your local representatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, like, also, another note, too. If you, like we said before, Riverview is open. You can walk around it. But please be respectful. There are people still working there, people who still seek help there. Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah, don't trespass.
Don't write Satan on the wall.
Yeah.
Because I will find you. No, f*** you up. I will be Satan to you. Alright, I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for supporting us for the last 14 episodes.
Yeah,
it's been really great. Just to give you guys like a fair warning, we're going to be taking a hiatus in the summer because I was accepted into a field school, so I'm not going to be actually in the country for a while. And we were kind of discussing this on whether we should record while I'm abroad, but all in all, we've decided that maybe it'd just be better to take a hiatus. I think this would be happening in like mid-May. I don't know when this episode's coming out, but just to give you guys a fair warning, that's going to be happening. We thank you so much for the support.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like, again, me and Ashley, like, we work really hard. We work really hard on this, and we really love doing this, and, like, just seeing your guys' support really makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you a lot.
And when we come back from our hiatus, we'll be bigger, better, gayer than ever.
Yeah, sexier than ever. Hopefully with some more jokey episodes, because these last two, kind of heavy.
Yeah, I promise I will come back with something a little bit more wacky and wild.
Do fairies.
Week. Fairies, maybe.
Yeah, I love Irish fairy folklore.
Or maybe I'll do the weasel.
Ooh, we talked about that in our...
I f***ing love the weasel.
That wasn't a weasel, that was a mongoose.
Oh, the mongoose! What was his name? It was Jeff the mongoose.
Jeff the mongoose. We talked about it in our live stream. It is a great case.
Yeah.
Also could be considered a cryptid. Cryptid Keeper actually did a great episode on it. I really love that one.
Nice.
Also follow Jeff the mongoose on Twitter.
It's a great pod.
It's great. Yeah, thank you for bearing with us with this kind of sad episode.
It's important though, because
yeah,
just because it's sad doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it.
Exactly, it's very important to talk about that.
Canadians love to sweep shit under the rug and continue to drink our Tim Hortons. It's like, no, I want to knock your Tim Hortons cup out from under your hands and let's talk about
Tim
it.
Fucking Hortons.
All right, that's another bucket of worms.
Alrighty, take care, guys. Stay peachy. Sorry for the paper rustling there. Sorry for us having our Girl Guides of Canada cookies. Another bad corporation.
Aren't they getting better though?
They're getting better. I just had a very negative situation with them. Yeah. Stay peachy, guys. We love you a lot. Alrighty.
We do.
Bye.
Take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week, and we hope that you enjoyed the episode. This episode features the voices of Molly Lorette and Ashley Smith. Our theme music was composed and produced by Larry Lorette. Our cover image was designed by Ashley Smith, and sound editing was done by Molly Lorette. Have any comments, concerns, or cases you want us to cover? Email us at demonsandbellinis@gmail.com. You can also find us at Demons and Bellinis on Tumblr, Demons and Bellinis on Instagram, and at DBellinis on Twitter. That's capital D and capital B. You'll also be able to find case pictures tweeted out there and posted to our Instagram. Also, make sure that if you like what we do here, drop us a donation at Ko-fi, which you can find through our Twitter. Thanks again, and we hope that you keep your ears open.